Every time someone finds out most of my team lives outside the US, the first question is always about money. How much are you paying them? What do you actually save? Isn't that just outsourcing? I get it. That's where everyone's head goes first. But I've placed over 3,000 professionals across more than 40 countries, and I've built a multi-six-figure a month business with a team all across the world. And the longer I've done this, the more I've realized that money was never the real story. The cost savings are real. They're just the smallest part of what's actually going on. The founders pulling ahead right now aren't hiring globally to spend less. They're hiring globally because they stopped pretending the best person for the job has to live within driving distance of their office. So over the next few minutes, I want to talk through why 98% of my team is overseas, the myths about hiring international talent that still won't die, the payroll math almost nobody sits down and runs, and why I think that companies built globally from day one are going to quietly eat everybody's lunch. And stick with me, because near the end, I want to take on the criticism of overseas hiring that everyone's thinking and almost nobody says to your face. I think most people that have arguments completely have it backwards, and I'll show you why. The hiring math quietly changed. For most of business history, you didn't hire the best person for the job. You hired the closest one. Not because being nearby made them good, because they were the ones who actually physically show up. If you were in a business in Atlanta or Denver or Chicago, your talent pool was basically whoever was willing to sit in traffic to get to your office. That was just the cost of doing business, and nobody thought so to question it. Then remote work happened, and the whole equation quietly fell apart. The best person for a role suddenly didn't have to live across town. They might be in Medellin or Buenos Aires or Mexico City. And once I actually saw that, I couldn't unsee it. I kept circling back to one question. Why would I cap my talent pool at one zip code when I could hire from an entire continent? That's the part most founders miss. Hiring globally isn't a payroll move, it's a talent move. The lower cost just happens to ride along with it. And the second I started looking at talent that way, I ran into something about compensation that flipped how I thought about the entire thing. The cheap labor myth. Now I want to take the criticism head on because it shows up every single time. You're just hiring cheap labor. I understand why it sounds that way from the outside, but it's built on a misread of how cost of living actually works. A salary that would be impossible to survive on in San Francisco can be genuinely great living across a lot of Latin America. Same dollars, completely different life. That's not exploitation, that's two economies that don't share a price tag. The deeper mistake is assuming low cost means low quality. Some of the sharpest operators, recruiters, assistants, and salespeople I have ever worked with live nowhere near the United States. That's not good despite being overseas. The talent was always there. What was never spread evenly around the world was the opportunity. So I stopped asking who's cheaper a long time ago. The only thing I screen for now is whether they're the best person I can get for the role. Anywhere on the map. And the more often than you'd expect, that person is sitting in another country. Once that clicked, it led to me straight to another realization that changed how I scaled. The payroll math almost nobody runs. Here's the reframe that took me too long to see. Most founders don't have a revenue problem. They have a leverage problem. Picture the money you'd spend on a single local hire. Call it $6,000 a month for one solid mid-level person. One seat, one set of hands. Now take that same $6,000 and spend it globally. Instead of one person, you could build an actual system around yourself, an executive assistant running your calendar and inbox, a recruiter keeping your pipeline full, someone on support so leads stop slipping through the cracks, maybe project coordination on top of that. For roughly what one local hire was going to cost you, at that point, you're not buying labor anymore. You're buying your time back. You're buying focus. You're buying the ability to spend your hours on 2 or 3 things only you can do. That's where I watch business owners get stuck. They treat payroll as a number to shrink. The ones who grow look at the same payroll and ask what kind of machine they can build with it. Same budget, completely different question. And the day I started thinking that way, scaling got a lot less heavy. If you're nodding along by now, okay, hiring globally makes sense. Here's the honest catch. Deciding to do it is the easy part. Finding people who are actually good is where it falls apart for most founders. Hiring across borders with no systems behind it turns into a mess fast. Wrong fits, people who vanish, time zones you didn't plan for. That's the exact problem we built Remote Latinos to solve. We help founders find, vet, and place high performers across Latin America without guesswork. So instead of drowning in applicants and hoping you pick the right person, you're choosing from people already screened for skill, communication, and culture. If you want help, head over to remotelatinos.com or come and hire and we'll get you in the right direction. Now let me get to the part of this I actually care about most. The reason I never go back. If every dollar of payroll saving vanished tomorrow, I'd still hire the way I hire because the biggest advantage was never the money. It's the mindset that tends to come with it. I've noticed something over the years that's hard to put a number on. A lot of the international professionals I work with treat a remote role with a US company as something bigger than a job. For a lot of them, it's a door that wasn't open before. And that does something to how a person shows up. The ownership, the commitment, the sense that this actually matters. Not everyone, not always, but often enough that you stop writing it off as a coincidence. I've watched virtual assistants grow into operations managers, appointment setters become closers, recruiters turn into the people leading the team. I've seen careers genuinely change the shape of people. And when someone feels like they're building a future with you instead of clocking in and clocking out, everything downstream of that changes too. How hard they work, how long they stay, what the culture feels like. The whole business gets better, and it traces back to that one thing. That's what never makes it into the debate about overseas hires. Everyone argues about the price. Almost no one stops to think about the person on the other end and what the opportunity means to them. Where is this going? And I think we're still early in on this. The founders who win the next decade won't be the ones with the biggest office or the fattest payroll or the largest recruiting budget. They'll be the ones who can attract the best people, period, no matter where those people happen to live. Look at what's already been solved. The internet handled distribution, so reach stopped being an advantage. Remote work handled location, so geography stopped being a wall. AI is handling raw productivity right now, so output per person is climbing fast. Line all of that up, and the one thing still genuinely in your control is whether you can find, attract, and keep great people. That's the whole reason 95% of my team is overseas. Not because they cost less, because they're exceptional. And because boxing myself into one local market stopped making any sense the moment I understood that. So if you're serious about building a strong team, scaling without burning yourself out, and understanding how modern businesses are turning global talent into an advantage their competitors can't see yet, subscribe and stick around. That's what we break down here, week after week. How to build, how to hire well, lead well, build remote teams, and grow businesses that don't depend on you doing everything yourself. Because the way I see it, the founders still hiring locally by default are now competing against founders hiring globally by design. And that gap only gets wider from here.